You have to wonder if they have a schedule for these things, don't you? Just when the palace seems to be getting on with the job, head down, dignity intact, we get a new video from California that screams for attention. And this one, well, this one is different. By now you've probably seen Harry standing in front of a room full of grieving parents, people who have lost their children to the darkest corners of social media, to suicide, to bullying, and he is weeping. He is fighting back tears, his voice cracking as he tells them, "None of you should be here." It's a powerful image, isn't it? On the surface, it's the heartbreaking sight of a father empathizing with the worst pain imaginable. But look a little closer. Listen harder to what was actually said, and the story starts to shift. Because while the tears were flowing, the narrative, as it always seems to do with the Sussexes, somehow circled back to him. And that is where the real heat is coming from today. While Harry is crying on camera back in London, a very different kind of meeting is reportedly taking place, one that involves a locked door and a set of keys held firmly by his brother and aunt. The contrast couldn't be sharper. One side is selling emotion, and the other is handling business. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I am so glad you could join me today because we have a mountain of things to discuss. It has been a whirlwind few days, and honestly the news coming out of Montecito and London is enough to make your head spin. We are going to break down everything, from that viral speech and the hidden meaning behind Harry's tears, to the reports that Meghan is in an absolute state over the failure of her latest ventures. And of course, the big news about the royal family finally closing ranks in a way we haven't seen before. Let's start with that video from February 12th. It's everywhere. You open your phone, and there is the Duke of Sussex, visibly shaken, addressing a group of parents who are part of a lawsuit against the big social media giants. Now, any parent, any grandparent, watching that would feel a pang of sympathy. The loss these families have suffered is unimaginable. Harry said, "None of you should be here," implying that the tech companies could have prevented these tragedies if they weren't so focused on profit. And he's right about that. No one is disputing that these parents deserve justice. But here is where it gets tricky, and here is why the internet is up in arms. During his speech, Harry didn't just stick to the parents' grief. He couldn't help but weave in his own battles. He used the phrase David and Goliath. Now, in the context of these poor families fighting trillion-dollar companies like Meta and Google, that makes sense. But we know Harry. We know his favorite topic. He has used that exact same David and Goliath phrasing to describe his own personal war against the British press. He equates his phone hacking cases, his security battles, and his complaints about tabloid intrusion with the struggle of parents who have physically lost a child to suicide. It's a breathtaking lack of perspective, isn't it? To stand in a room of people grieving the ultimate loss and subtly draw a parallel to your own legal fees and privacy complaints. It feels off. It feels like he is co-opting their pain to validate his own crusade. And the comments online, oh, they are brutal. People are asking, is there anything he won't make about himself? It's this constant need to center himself as the victim, even when he is supposed to be the comforter. You see him choking up, and part of you wants to believe it's pure empathy. We know he's a sensitive soul. We've seen that since he was a boy walking behind his mother's coffin. But another part of you, the part that has watched the Netflix series, read the memoir, and seen the interviews, wonders if he understands the difference between his trauma of bad press and the trauma of a child's death. The internet is calling it narcissism cloaked in charity. It's harsh, but when you look at the track record, can you blame them? Then there's the Meghan element. Even when she isn't center stage, her presence is felt. The reports are that she was there, supporting, but the focus was on Harry's emotional display. And you have to ask, does this help the cause? Or does it turn a serious discussion about child safety into another episode of the Harry and Meghan show? The spotlight immediately shifts from the grieving mothers to Harry cries, Harry's speech, Harry's pain. The charity work becomes a vehicle for their brand rehabilitation. It's a cynical way to look at it, I know, but we've been given so many reasons to be cynical. This video has gone viral not just because of the tears, but because it highlights the massive disconnect between how the Sussexes see themselves and how the world sees them. They see themselves as global saviors, the only ones brave enough to speak the truth. The rest of the world sees a couple of very privileged people who seem unable to read the room. Harry telling these families truth, justice, and accountability are coming sounds noble, but coming from a man who has spent the last 4 years demanding accountability from his own family for perceived slights, it rings a bit hollow. It sounds like he's projecting his own desire for vindication onto these families. He wants to win his court cases so badly that he's treating their lawsuit as a proxy for his own battles. Now let's pivot for a second and look at what is happening on the other side of the pond. Because while Harry is weeping in California, the royal family is doing something very different. They are working, and they are silent. You don't see King Charles or Prince William releasing emotional videos every time they have a bad day or a difficult meeting. The contrast is jarring. You have Harry wearing his heart on his sleeve, practically begging for validation. And then you have William, who has faced arguably much more pressure recently with his wife's health and his father's illness, just getting on with it. It brings us to the second, and perhaps juicier, part of our discussion today. The rumors coming out of London are getting louder, and they are very specific. We've heard for a long time that the door was ajar for Harry, right? That Charles, being the soft-hearted father, would always welcome his darling boy back. Well, it seems that door has been slammed shut, locked, and the key has been thrown into the Thames. And the person turning the lock might surprise you. It's not just William anymore. It's the formidable Princess Anne. Think about it. Princess Anne is the hardest working royal. She is no nonsense. She doesn't do drama. She doesn't do interviews about her feelings. And she certainly doesn't tolerate people who shirk their duty. The gossip is that there has been a sort of summit, maybe not as formal as Sandringham, but a meeting of the minds between Charles, William, and Anne. The consensus? Harry is a liability, a danger, not just a nuisance, but an active threat to the stability of the monarchy. They look at this video from February 12th, and they don't see a loving prince. They see a loose cannon. They see someone who is emotionally unstable and willing to say anything to a camera if it gets a reaction. For William, this is personal. We know that. The betrayal in Spare went too deep. But for Anne to be reportedly leading the charge on this blockade, that is significant. She has always been the king's right hand, the one he trusts implicitly. If Anne is saying, no, he cannot come back, not even for a visit, not even for a temporary role, then it is over. The Sandringham Summit 2.0 rumors suggest that they have agreed to a unified front. No return, no half in, half out, no money, no security, nothing. And this is where the panic sets in for the Sussexes. We will get into Meghan's reaction in a moment. And oh boy, is that a story. But just stick with the Harry side of this for a second. Imagine being him. You've burned every bridge. You've sold every secret. You've cried on every television network that will have you. And now, the money is running out. The Hollywood interest is fading. And the one thing that gave you currency, your proximity to the crown, is gone. Truly gone. If these reports are true, and Anne and William have successfully lobbied the king to cut him off completely, Harry is in a very dangerous position. He's out on a limb in a country that is starting to tire of him, with a lifestyle he can't afford and no safety net to catch him. The David and Goliath speech takes on a new meaning in this light. Maybe he feels like Goliath is his own family. Maybe he feels like the big bad institution is crushing him, but he forgets that he handed them the stones. He threw the first punch. And now that they are fighting back with the ultimate weapon, silence and exclusion, he doesn't know what to do. The tears in that video? Maybe they were for the parents, but maybe, just maybe, they were tears of frustration. Tears of a man realizing that he has shouted and screamed for 4 years, and the only response he is getting now is the sound of a door locking. It's interesting to note the public's reaction to the royal family's stance. A few years ago, there might have been pressure on Charles to reconcile. Oh, make peace before it's too late, people would say. But now, after the Oprah interview, after the Netflix wine fest, after the book attacking Camilla, the public is with William and Anne. You read the comments on these news articles, and it's overwhelmingly supportive of the blockade. People are saying, good for them. Protect the monarchy. Keep the drama in Montecito. The sympathy for Harry has evaporated because people are tired of the hypocrisy. You can't claim to care about families and mental health while actively trying to destroy your own family's mental health for a paycheck. It just doesn't wash anymore. And speaking of paychecks, that is the elephant in the room. The Sussex brand is failing. We've seen the Spotify deal collapse. We've seen the Archetypes podcast go nowhere. And now, we're hearing about the struggles with Meghan's lifestyle brand. Remember that? The jams? The dog biscuits? Where is it? It's been months, and we have seen nothing but a few jars sent to celebrities who barely posted about them. It's a disaster. And this financial pressure is fueling the desperation we are seeing in videos like the one from the 12th. They need to stay relevant. They need to be seen as humanitarians because the Hollywood producer angle didn't work. The podcaster angle didn't work. So they are retreating back to what they know, royal-style engagements, shaking hands and giving speeches. But without the royal backing, it just looks like a celebrity photo op. It lacks the gravitas, and they know it. This brings us to the most explosive part of the current gossip, Meghan's reaction to all of this. While Harry is out there trying to be the emotional heart of the operation, Meghan is reportedly behind the scenes, and the word hysteria is being thrown around a lot. We are hearing stories about a meltdown of epic proportions. She sees the walls closing in. She sees the blockade from London, and she knows what it means. It means her connection to the source of her fame is being severed. Without the will they won't they reconcile narrative, what does she have left to sell? There are rumors that she is blaming everyone but herself. She's blaming the staff, the few that are left in the so-called Sussex Survivors Club. She's blaming the PR teams. And most worryingly for their marriage, she is reportedly blaming Harry. The narrative in her head seems to be that Harry didn't fix it, that he didn't secure their bag, that he let his family outmaneuver them. It's never her fault, is it? It's never the fact that the products aren't good or the ideas are derivative. It's always a conspiracy against her. We need to talk about this meltdown in detail because it ties into a very scary possibility that is being whispered about in publishing circles. If the royal family blocks them completely, and if the lifestyle brand fails, what is the nuclear option? The memoir, not Harry's, Meghan's. The rumor is that she is threatening to write her own tell-all, and this one wouldn't hold back. Harry's book was damaging, sure, but he still loves his father deep down. Meghan? She has no loyalty to them. If she decides to burn the house down, she will bring gasoline, and that threat is likely what is keeping the tension so high in London. So, you have this incredible split screen. On one side, Harry crying about social media and justice, trying to look like the good guy. On the other side, the icy silence of the palace, led by Anne and William, shutting him out to protect the institution. And in the middle, a panic-stricken Meghan Markle, watching her empire crumble and looking for someone to blame. It is a recipe for absolute chaos. As we move into the next part of this story, we need to look closer at exactly why Meghan is spiraling. It's not just the money. It's the humiliation. The social climbing didn't work. The A-listers aren't calling. And now, the in-laws she despised are the ones holding all the cards. It's a classic tragedy, really. Hubris. But before we feel too sorry for them, let's remember the trail of destruction they've left behind. The staff who were bullied. The family members who were traduced on global television. The grandmother who spent her final years dealing with their drama. The video on the 12th was just the tip of the iceberg. It was the public face of a private desperation. Harry's tears were real, I'm sure. But what was he crying for? The parents, or the realization that he has lost everything that actually mattered? And speaking of voids, let's shift our gaze over to the other side of the Atlantic, where the real fireworks seem to be happening behind those Montecito gates. You know, the ones that cost a fortune, but apparently can't keep the drama contained. We've all heard the whispers turning into roars about this so-called blockade against Harry ever stepping foot back into royal duties. It's not just idle chit-chat anymore. It's practically etched in stone, or at least in the palace's invisible rule book. Picture this. A modern-day family summit, not unlike that infamous Sandringham one back in 2020 where everything started unraveling. Insiders are calling it Sandringham Summit 2.0. And oh, the details that are leaking out are enough to make you refill your coffee twice. From what I'm hearing, this wasn't some casual tea-time discussion. It was a full-on strategy session held quietly over the holidays or maybe even earlier, with King Charles at the head of the table, though bless him, he's been dealing with his health and probably didn't want the extra headache. But there he was, flanked by the heavy hitters. Prince William, of course, who's been the voice of reason, or retribution, depending on how you look at it, and Princess Anne, who's emerged as the surprise enforcer in all this. Anne, with her no-frills attitude and that legendary work ethic, reportedly laid it out plain and simple. Harry's return would be madness for the monarchy. She's the one who's been pounding the pavement for decades without a single complaint, visiting factories and hospitals while Harry was off spilling family secrets for Netflix dollars. Can you imagine her reaction to the idea of him waltzing back in, half out, like it's no big deal? Oh, she's said to have aligned completely with William, arguing that any reconciliation would undermine the stability Charles has been fighting to maintain. And William? He's not budging an inch. Sources close to the situation say he's resolute, a word that pops up a lot in these reports. After everything, the Oprah bombshells, the Netflix series that painted the family as cold and uncaring, and that book, Spare, where he didn't hold back on personal attacks, including some veiled digs at Kate when she was going through her own health scares. William sees Harry as a walking liability. It's not just brotherly rivalry anymore. It's about protecting the institution and, more personally, his own family. Remember how Harry accused the royals of planting stories against him and Meghan? Well, turnabout is fair play, or so it seems, because now William's camp is making it clear. No privileges, no Frogmore Cottage, no security perks, nothing. If Harry wants to visit, fine, but it'll be as a private citizen, scraping together his own arrangements like the rest of us. No more dipping into the royal pot for convenience. Charles, poor thing, is caught in the middle. There are stories floating around that he misses his darling boy, as he once called Harry, and maybe even floated the idea of some limited role to ease the burden on the slimmed-down monarchy. But with William and Anne pushing back hard, he's reportedly upholding Queen Elizabeth's old decree. You can't be half in, half out. It's all or nothing, and for Harry, it's nothing. One expert even said Charles is forgiving, but firm, sticking to his mother's legacy to avoid any more chaos. Imagine the tension in those rooms. Anne with her straightforward glare, William with his quiet intensity, and Charles trying to keep the peace while his health hangs in the balance. It's like a real-life episode of a family drama, but with crowns and castles. Now let's hop over to Montecito, where the fallout from all this is supposedly hitting like a California wildfire. Meghan's reaction? Well, if the rumors are to be believed, and they've been swirling with impressive speed, she's not taking it lying down. Word is she's in full meltdown mode, hysterics and all, blaming everyone from the palace courtiers to her own staff for the way things have crumbled. It's that classic pattern we've seen before. When deals go south, heads roll, but never her own. Remember the Spotify flop? That multi-million-dollar podcast that fizzled out after one season? Archetypes was supposed to be her big comeback, empowering women and all that. But it ended up being labeled grifting by critics, and poof, gone. Now, her latest venture, that American Riviera Orchard lifestyle brand, is stuck in limbo. Launched with such fanfare, a website, an Instagram tease, even those jars of jam sent to influencers. But where are the products? The rosé wine? The home goods? It's all trademark disputes and delays, with reports saying administrative errors have bogged it down for months. No launches, no sales, just a lot of hype that's starting to smell like vaporware. And the money? That's the real kicker. The Sussexes' empire was built on those tell-all deals, Netflix, the book advances. But sources say the well is drying up. Harry's inheritance from the Queen Mother helped, But with their lavish lifestyle, that 9-bedroom mansion, private jets, security details, it's not infinite. Meghan's reportedly panicking about the blocked status, seeing it as the final nail in their relevance coffin. Without any royal ties, what's left? More Hollywood schmoozing? But even that's not panning out. Her acting gigs dried up years ago, and the A-list invites seem fewer and farther between. Insiders whisper she's firing off blame left and right. The staff aren't competent, the PR team's failing, the media's biased, anyone but herself. It's that self-victimization we've come to expect, but honestly, at this point, it's wearing thin. How many times can you cry foul before people start tuning out? Then there's the family angle. With Harry reportedly yearning for some UK reconnection, maybe for the kids' sake or his own nostalgia, Meghan's said to be terrified of him drifting back toward the royals without her. The idea of him patching things up with William or Charles, even informally, has her in a tizzy, fearing it'll expose cracks in their united front. And let's not forget the Omid Scobie drama lingering in the background. His book Endgame stirred up more racism allegations, naming names in that Dutch edition mishap, and it's only added fuel to the fire. Meghan's camp denied involvement, but the whispers persist. Add in the Fergie comparisons, Sarah Ferguson, who's managed a quiet semi-return without the drama, and it must sting. Fergie's out there doing her thing, supporting Andrew discreetly, while Meghan's ventures keep stalling. But here's where it gets really explosive. The threat of Meghan's memoirs. Oh yes, the nuclear option, as some are calling it. Rumors have been bubbling for months that she's penning her own tell-all, a follow-up to Harry's Spare, but from her perspective. Imagine the headlines: more palace intrigue, more accusations of mistreatment, maybe even dirt on the in-laws. It's her ace in the hole, or so she thinks, a way to reclaim the narrative and rake in the cash. But is it a bluff? Sources say she's been dropping hints in interviews, testing the waters, but the palace is unfazed. William's team has reportedly prepared for it, knowing it could backfire spectacularly. After all, Harry's book sold well but tanked his popularity polls. Meghan's could do the same, painting her as the perpetual complainer rather than the empowered woman she markets herself as. And with the brand failures piling up, is this desperation? It's juicy, isn't it? So, what does this mean for their future? Honestly, it's looking bleak if they keep on this path. Harry's tears in that video might pull at some heartstrings, but without real change, maybe an apology, maybe stepping back from the victim narrative, they're stuck in limbo. Meghan's meltdown could lead to more rash decisions like that memoir, which might bring short-term bucks but long-term exile. The royals have moved on, the blockade is firm, with William, Anne, and now Charles holding the line. The Sussexes could pivot to genuine philanthropy away from the spotlight, but that doesn't seem likely. Instead, we're probably in for more headlines, more leaks, more division. It's sad, really, a family torn apart, but one side's chosen silence and service while the other keeps shouting. Who knows? Maybe time will heal, but right now that door's not just shut, it's barricaded.